On this podcast, we share a nuanced view on discussions involving relationships, self growth, and perspective. I'm still a 27-year-old male for anyone that's been listening. And every week, I'm joined by a counterpart. This week, though, I'm joined by the healthiest couple I know. That's in their 20s at least, Mao and Maddie. Right off the bat, Mao, I'm going to start with you. Last episode,
Bring it.
Maddie talked about how she ghosted you in the early stages of dating. Do you remember that when she was MIA 4 days with her friends?
Not even a little bit, honestly. I was actually going through a lot of self-exploration at the time. I had just experienced a crazy heartbreak with a love bomb from a different girl. I was experiencing my dad leaving, which to me was a huge deal because my parents were married at the time for 35 years. And so, I don't know, like they were the picture perfect, get married, have the family, buy the house, have the thing, all the stuff. And when my dad left my mom, they're back together now, spoiler alert. But when he left and we didn't know he was coming back, I was in a very crazy, like learning to let go and appreciate the temporary. And so I feel like during my single phase, I went on a ton of dates, like over 100. It was a lot of dating. And mind you, these are all just interactions with a different person. It wasn't like sex with 100 and some girls. Like it was, let's go hiking, let's go bowling, let's go grab a bite, let's explore something new, paint night, movie night, all the things that you could do to interact with someone for the first time. I went on over 100 dates with all, like the whole spectrum, different races, different like body types, different everything. Cause I wanted to see what I looked for in a partner and what I valued. And also, it was a very unique opportunity, I think, to peek into somebody's life. And we don't really get a lot of that. Like, we have our bubble and the people that kind of think similar to us and we share ideas with. And it was just a very unique opportunity, I think, to find out what makes me feel the spark, as people call it.
That
And
is,
I didn't,
sorry, go ahead.
I just didn't feel it very much. And with Maddie, it was at the time, it was very much like another beautiful view at somebody's life. And I was really at the peak of not taking things personally. And it was like a long road of like discovering that if somebody didn't like me for exactly the way that I am, and I didn't hold back, like I had a couple of rules. Like I'm a quirky guy. I love humor. I text often and not in one thing. And I was like, I'm not going to filter myself. If I feel like texting a girl and she perceives it as needy, we're not going to work out anyway, because this is how I naturally text. And I was like, I'm just going to unapologetically be myself and text when I feel like it feels right, say what I think I would like to hear or what I feel like saying, obviously within reason, right? Like I feel like there's a lot of men out there that have embraced, I'm going to tell her to sit on my face, and they think that's appropriate. But like within reason, like being respectful. And I think Maddie, it just didn't feel like it was personal. I was like, she'll text if she wants to text. And if I want to text her, I'll text her. And I did. And I would say things. And if she didn't respond, I'd be like, she's probably busy. Like I was also on a very, I guess, feeling like assuming the best out of the person and just being like, she's busy. Like she's just got other shit going on in her life and she'll respond when she can. In the meantime, if she crosses my mind, I'm going to text her. And I did. And if she doesn't like it, at some point, either she will actually ghost and never respond again, or she'll just tell me like, hey, I was busy for the last 4 days, which is what ended up happening. And I was just like, I was right, which was nice. But yeah, that's a long-winded answer, but I feel like it all really played into how like, we met at the perfect time. She's, I think, in the best place she's ever been as a person, and I think I worked on myself enough to wait for something incredible.
Fuck me, that's not the answer I was expecting.
No, I can't. I'm in a relationship.
Oh, okay. Damn.
It's not into you like that, Justin.
Dude, I
God.
didn't even register what you said. Okay, that was quick. You are fucking ready. All right. Yeah, that makes me want to end the podcast right there. That's all we need. That's every man.
You're welcome, everybody. Go be merry.
We just needed another male on the podcast. Speaking of, I'm going to flip the bat to Maddie, and then we're going to come back together on this. Maddie, do you feel like you're dating an alpha?
I think it depends on the definition of what alpha is.
Careful. Careful.
Watch me start hurting egos. No, I'm just kidding. It honestly, it really depends on what the definition of alpha is, because I think like people use that word and it gets thrown around as alpha, beta, and I honestly find it to be like a cringe definition because I think we talk about this often, and I think our conversation usually involves like divine masculine, and I think that's a much better representation of what I think people are going for when they say alpha. And if that is the definition, then yes, I absolutely do think I am. But I think Mao has a really beautiful side to him that he gets to have both, where he can take charge when he needs to take charge and handle the things that I'm not necessarily in the state to handle or that I don't want to handle. And then he's able to ask for my guidance or my leadership and other things when there are things that he doesn't necessarily want to take the leader role on, or things that maybe he just necessarily maybe more about this. And so we play both sides of it really well, and I think it's good. It's a lot of respect, I think, is what plays into that. And I think honestly, that should be the definition of alpha, because any good leadership, if we're talking about like leader versus follower, any good leader is going to be looking to seek answers and guidance from other people as well. So I would
I
say
love
yes, but
yes in
respectfully.
your own definition,
Yeah.
in a healthier definition, in something that you've put in thought on yourself. That's
I'm actually going to ask you, Justin, if I may. What do you think is an alpha? What when someone says alpha male, what it comes to your mind?
Yeah, that's what's been the kind of journey I'm on too, is separating the two that seem healthy with people that I actually admire and notice and that seem more aligned with me, and then the alpha that's always been taught. So I've been in sales my whole life. So I've been around like straight up like that is what you define as alpha, cokeheads selling shit and cheating on their wives like 24/7. Okay, so that's masculine. You just fucking do whatever you want and then she goes with it. Like that was one example. Then the more glorified example of alpha was on the Alpha Men podcast for dating coaches, where you're an alpha and you make decisions. So you say what you want to do and then she follows along. You just have to keep making decisions. And then I saw a podcast yesterday that kind of separated that. That doesn't relate to us. It was a very healthy couple. It's in fact that Love Life book. That's him and his wife. And they define alpha and feminine as both of them. They take turns being alpha and feminine. He even admits he has his feminine sides, but he's viewed as very alpha because he does boxing and jiu-jitsu. But he has many other feminine sides that maybe other people don't see on his show. And they both just take turns. So it's been evolving. And when I saw that podcast, even though my journey on the definition of alpha has been changing, it was really nice to see someone that I admire and has something that I value have that answer, where it's a shared nuance of alpha and feminine on both sides.
That's I feel like that's what they call the divine masculine, which is something I heard in like a woman's podcast about dating. About she's I think a sex therapist, and she talks about the sexiest thing about a man in the traditional sense in dating, in the dating world, is a man that can adapt to the circumstances, and he takes the lead when the lead needs to be filled, and also is quick to listen and not to speak, and who is just adaptive. And I've actually really wrestled with the same question too, because I feel like my dad's dad and my dad have had my dad was very masculine in the traditional sense, but he had three boys, and so me and my two brothers were all like artsy kids. And I think he's really had to be confronted by, my kids are very masculine and I raised three very masculine boys, even if they're not the ones that are like CEOs and just like stepping over people. Like we have this compassion, and I feel like we deal with conflict with our words and not with violence. And also we're solid enough dudes that we would step into a situation that requires at least a physical imposition, if the situation requires that. But I think it's really ironic that a lot of men that define or that have been pursuing the idea or the notion of alpha males, the ones that self-declare alpha males are typically people whose ego is so fragile that when asked or challenged on their alpha maleness, they will react to it. And like people who don't care about being called alpha males, the people that I think most people admire and look towards for the guidance of some sort of elevated masculinity, you'd say like, you're a beta, and they'd be like, okay. There's no, like, they have so much confidence that you don't have access to their identity or their masculinity. And I feel like that rarely comes from people that self-identify as alpha male. And I find that really funny, that like how fragile an alpha man's ego is, that if he's selling cocaine and he's like this tough guy that beats his wife, if you were to be like, you're a bitch, they'll immediately be like, don't talk about my masculinity. And it crumbled. As soon as I mentioned it and you felt like you needed to defend it, clearly you don't agree with that statement, because there's nothing to defend if you know that you're a man. Like I feel like it's an interesting identity politics when your whole identity hangs on a word like alpha or something like that. It's a complicated thing.
It is complicated. And I think a lot of men are looking for the answer on which one is right.
Yeah.
Honestly, as of last night, it felt like I finally had an answer that felt clearer to me, because decision making is something that's always been hard for me. I always have doubted my decisions because of my childhood, everything in the past. I never knew how much I doubted my own decisions. And turns out that is a huge part of, forget alpha, that's just a huge part of knowing who you are, your own confidence, your own security. That has been clearing up more. And I think every man that's looking for the answers on this probably struggled with that too, where your own decisions are doubted.
Yeah.
And even in the dating world, you're seeing all kinds of content that encourage that alpha feminine separation. And it's just trying to, like, at the end of the day, it's trying to get your need met. Like, love, have some safety, comfort, security, and then also grow with someone, and then still be your own person. That's all what we're looking for at the end. We're just getting there separate ways. So
for sure.
That's been a huge discovery. Go ahead.
No, I feel like that's a lot of just being sure of yourself. It sounds like what you're describing. And I think a lot of times that's what podcasts or whatever are talking about. Make all the decisions. Like the man needs to step up and decide the date, and because women like that. And it's women like someone who's sure of themselves. Because what we don't want is somebody who's not sure about things. Because then if you're not sure about yourself, you're not sure about whether or not you like me or you want to date me or what kind of conversations you want to have with me. You don't know what we're going to talk about on the date if you're not sure. Versa, I think guys want to date girls, or guys or girls dating girls, whatever. You always want your partner to be sure of themselves, because then you're going to be able to actually bond with the person that they are, not whatever mask they had to put on that day to get through the day. And so I think like the alpha beta thing can sometimes provide this mask that men are putting on, that are like, yeah, I'm Mr. Tough Guy. And it's, who are you really? Are you sure about yourself? Because I want to know who you are. And it's a lot more comforting to talk to somebody, to date somebody, to be with somebody who knows who they are, and you get to see behind all of the whatever ego verbiage and get through all of that and then just know who they are. But I think it gets misinterpreted a lot.
It's easy to misinterpret it. Negativity speaks louder than positivity. And I'm hoping something like this, where we don't even give advice, we just share our own experiences, help someone out. I want to see more things like that. So why not create it, something like this? And so that's what
I love it, man.
doing. Thanks, man. That decision is so crazy that all of this really just relates to self-discovery. Like, both need to have alpha and feminine. And the only way, like the whole have to have those things, is just out of self-discovery. It just happens. The more security you have in yourself. Like I was telling Maddie, like right before we started the podcast, I've always been insecure about how I look, my weight, and all of that. I thought, hey, lose weight and everything will be better. I lost 40 pounds this year, and at some point I was like, oh, this had nothing to do with my weight. It was entirely about how I viewed myself, my activity, and just how I lived my life. Like the weight was just an expression of all of that coming out, which made me unsure about myself.
Of course.
And now I'm like, I love my lifestyle, and then the weight will keep coming off. I still have that goal, but that changed everything. And I'm actually actively dating a lot more now because of that one little mindset change. Nothing really happened on the outside. It was just internal.
What's really funny about this whole thing is, like, when you're so concerned about yourself, you can't really spend time with the person you're trying to date. And I think that ends up happening a lot is when you're concerned about your weight or whether you're saying the right thing, it's all me. And we don't realize it. It's like, all I want is love. And so when you go on a date, you're concerned, did I say hello? Was I awkward? And so it's, again, you're just looking inward. And I feel like what I discovered through my dating experience was that everybody just really wants to feel seen. And so if you have your shit covered, to be like, I know who I am. I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to, because I'm curious and I get to peek into somebody else's life. And when the focus becomes, I want to know about you, then the other person can feel free to be like, now I want to know about you. And then it becomes this, I think, mutual symbiotic exchange of personalities and ideas. And the thing is, you could be the most interesting person in the world. Truly, you could. And I think none of it really matters unless you're willing to discover the person across from you. And everybody has something that's interesting about them. You could be I don't know, like a sign twirler or whatever. That's fascinating. Like the amount of time you have to spend outdoors twirling your sign, developing new tricks. There's an endless array of questions because there's people that are actually really passionate about that. I'm sure of it. And so I feel like when you actually are curious, and it's a lifestyle, I think curiosity is a lifestyle. I think curiosity requires a lot of emotional intelligence and just actual intelligence. And to get to curiosity, you have to deal with yourself first so that you can start looking outwards instead of be concerned about the inward perception that people have of you. And that is a tough hill to climb, because most people are so concerned about like how they're perceived that they're blaming other people by how they are perceived. They're like they're angry or they're closed off because they're scared of showing things. But I feel like when you're able to lift those walls and be like, this is me, you either like me romantically or friendly or whatever, and we can navigate that as it comes along, you realize that you can actually relate to a lot more people. I think you're in a really cool journey, man. And it took me a long time to get there. I'm 34 now. And so I think all of my 20s, I thought I was secure in myself, but it's really hard to let go of all that. So I think you're in a really cool spot, man. And it sounds like you made a major breakthrough when you were like, if someone's going to like me, I'd rather them like me for me as I am now. And we can grow into what needs to change and what can evolve. But I don't want to pretend that I'm that when I'm not. And if they love me for this, then that's the person I want to be with. And I think that's really special.
That's actually the really tough part, is when you decide to jump on that journey, that growth mindset. What I shut myself off. This is what happened to me. I shut myself off and I'm like, I'm just stay in therapy. I'm just stay in therapy. I'm gonna close myself off. I'm gonna get better. And then I'll approach the world. You went about it in, you're gonna approach your growth by inviting another person into it, the 100 dates. I think that's more empowering. I don't think either is right or wrong, because you can always just flip flop your mind and just go from there. But what gave you the courage to go ahead and get out there? Because even now, you're much further ahead in self-discovery and growth, right? Maybe 2 years ago, you wouldn't have thought you were worthy of being with someone. But yeah, how'd you get the bravery to start that?
I think, you know what, maybe I had the privilege of having a head start. And I don't think that this is a race, by the way. I feel like I've been discovering how different brains work. Like I'll think something is very obvious to me, and then somebody will be like, what are you even talking about? How'd you get to that? And I think I've been very blessed and cursed with ADHD. And so I think curiosity was something that I was just naturally born with. And so I think my approach to this was like, I'd rather live my life knowing what it was like to meet 100 and some people and peek into the lives and discover myself through exploration and fail, because you will fail. And those 100 dates weren't all magical. I had a lot that I was like, I do not like this in a person. And I suffered 2 hours in a car with a girl that I just met, and she was blasting like the absolute most raunchy gangster rap and singing along in abnormally loud hype girl just say, "Blah, blah, motherfucker," and I'd be like, we are meeting for the first time right now. What is happening?
Jeez. Well, she's sure about herself, at least.
Yeah. And she it was a lot of different dates basically. And to say I didn't like that, why didn't I like that? But I didn't. It's not like that I don't look like her, because she's fine. She's gonna find someone that's gonna be right up there, hyping up that rap. Wasn't me. And so it was a bad date for me because I was in traffic for an hour and some change. Just like, God, make it stop. Can I show you? Like, there was no mutual interest. And so I started taking note. Like, I like someone who is as curious as I am. I think curiosity is sexy. Okay. Do I like tall girls? Do I like short girls? Do I mind if they're heavier? Because, and no disrespect, by the way, I mean that. Do I find more meat on the bones more attractive, or super skinny, or fitness? Or I went on as many dates as I could to meet people, but also to discover what I like, because I was confused. I was like, what do I value in a relationship? And truthfully, relationships are fucking hard. You might meet someone that makes you feel incredible, and it either gets boring or you like it's repetitive. And so you have to grow together, and finding someone that can you start off in an incredible place and go from there is essential. And I had a lot of failed relationships up to this point. And so I think the courage came from just this desire to meet people without the promise of sex or affection or physical touch, but with the foundation of I'm peeking into somebody's life who's also at the very least curious about mine. And how can I show myself, you know?
I need to add to that though, because
Yes.
because before him and I were really dating, my friends knew him as accidental date guy because
I have a name.
we
I
literally
had a name the whole time though.
no. But you know what, like girls, like we
I
don't
know.
tell our friends the guy's name until he like solidifies a place in our life, and then we're like, okay, accidental date guy's name is Mao, everybody, and they're like, oh my god, Mao. And the only reason my friends found out is because they happened to actually also know him, which was really funny. But I digress. We'd met, and then like a year prior as friends, and we were just buds, and like we met on TikTok and hung out. And I was like, "Mm, yeah, as a matter of fact." Spilled all my beans to him. It's like a friend conversation. And then at the end of it, he drops it on me. He's like, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. I've always thought you were cute. Like, I had a crush on you. And I was like, cool, thanks.
Cool,
And
thanks.
yeah,
I was like, cool, I shot my shot, didn't work. All right.
Jeez.
Hey, no harm, no foul. And left it at that. I was like, we're friends. Cool, we're friends, platonic. She could have said you're cute too. No harm, no foul. And
my internal dialogue was like, ah.
Okay, at least
I
there was an
also
internal dialogue.
There was internal dialogue. This is a sidestep from my story, but my internal dialogue also was the fact that since I had become single, every guy friend that I thought was just a friend who's truly, I thought like we were bros, that we could hang out, that we were buds. Every single one of them tried to kiss me, told me they'd been in love with me this whole time, told me they were so glad I was single because they could take me out on a date. And I was like, what the fuck? You never actually wanted to be my friend. That's offensive. Honestly, I'm not friend material to you. I'm just literally good enough for you to fantasize about until it's your turn. That's gross. And so, not that Mal made me feel that way, but I had just had that reaction so many times. I like him, but I don't know if I like him or if I just like the attention. I don't know. I'm getting a lot of attention right now, and I don't know if I like him or I like the attention, and I gotta go. Thanks. And so I leave, I go to my session, and I come in with the most like absurd energy to the session, my music session. And they're like, what are you on? How many coffees did you drink? And I'm like, nothing. Life is great. Anyways, let's write this song, guys. And anyways, some time goes by, and I text him, and I'm like, I have 3 hours free. What are you doing? Just same day. Hit him back up, and he was like, I'm free. I'll come pick you up. And then he sends me a text. We could go mini golfing. We could go grab drinks. We could go to a
the
movie.
longest
Bowling.
text.
We could like all these options. He's just laying it all out. And I was like, I'm in Hollywood. Why don't we just go grab a drink? My friend recommended this like rooftop, and we can just chat. And he's like, cool. So he comes, he picks me up from my friend's place, and we're like sitting on this beautiful rooftop with a view of like all of Hollywood on one side and LA on the other. And like they have these big lounge beds where you like lay down, and we like both have a couple cocktails, and it starts to get kind of chilly. And I notice they're bringing blankets out for some of the other people. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like trying to flirt with him, and he's not, because in his mind, we're friends. Like
We're friends, yeah.
I told her I liked her, and she was like, cool, thanks. And he's okay, cool. This is still, she was my friend before. She's going to continue to be my friend. And at this point, I'm like, no, I've decided now. I just needed to sit on it for a minute. Like, do you think he's cute? This is a date, and he doesn't know it's a date. And how does he not know this is a date? And so I'm like, literally, I'm like, I'm a little cold. They have blankets. I wonder where they get those blankets from. And I was like, oh, I'll go grab one for you. So he runs off and he comes back with 2 blankets. And I was like, oh, God, I thought I was gonna at least get him to like get under the blanket and be all cute, and that would solidify I was flirting with him. Nothing. I didn't have the balls to say anything until it was over. I was like, "So, how's your crush on me doing after you got to talk to me?" Like we talked for what, 3 hours or more?
Nonstop. Well, so I there is one thing. One thing I thought was really helpful for me, because I get social anxiety, and I had to develop some sort of like consistent thing that I could do in a date, so that it could, like, to see if someone's interested in me. And also because I learned that a lot of people just genuinely don't have like the ability to carry a conversation. And so I was like, I'm gonna help it along. So not specifically that Maddie needed it, but I was like, to get to know somebody, we're gonna play the question game, which is the stupidest. It's just literally a conversation. It's teaching people this is how conversations work. But Maddie didn't need it, but it was just a helpful thing. So the idea is, I ask a question, you decide whether you want to answer it honestly or not, but you answer it. And the other person can throw that question back to you, but that doesn't count as their question. Literally, that is what conversations are. And so we were playing for 3 hours, and it was everything, just like the stupid questions that are basic. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why? All the way to what do you think about God, and how do you feel about the church? To like, here's how I feel about abortion. What do you like? Everything. We covered all the things, very deep and complicated to very simple and goofy. And so at some point we get in the car after a 4 hour. It was 4 hours. You called me at 3:30 and we met at 4,
Yeah.
and your thing was at 8 and we were late. So we left at
Oh
8.
yeah, that's right.
We get in the car. We're in a car now. I'm like, yeah, I'll drive you to your thing. We're in a car now. Put my seatbelt on. We start driving, and she's so I have a question for you. And I'm like, oh yeah, what's up? And she's like, how's that crush? And I was like, honestly, you're living up to it. You're an incredible human. It also kind of a bummer. Like, I was really hoping you'd feel somewhat similar or something like along those lines. She's like, I always thought you were cute. And I was like, why are you telling me this now? I'm driving, you jerk. And then she goes, we're at a stoplight. And so that was the first time we kissed, which was really sweet. But
Wow.
I feel like, yeah, it was a crazy roller coaster for me. But I think the
For one
moral
day.
of the story, why did you bring it up? I guess. What is the moral of the story, Maddie?
No, the point I brought up is that you were saying that you would go on all these dates without really any need for it to be anything. That was just pure curiosity about somebody. And I also know you have several friends that are women that you went on dates with, and now they're friends because you
Yeah.
like went out with them and you're like, meh, I think we're better as friends. Or maybe you saw them for a while and then it pittered out and you're like, we're buds now. And so all that to speak to the fact that that gave me the opportunity to even see you in that way, because I felt safe enough to call you back up and be like, hey, let's grab a drink. I thought it was a date, even though you didn't, but I felt safe enough for that. Even if at the end of that date, I was like, yeah, no, I don't like him. I decided about having attention, that you would have been like, all right, whatever. We had a cool conversation for a little while and that was that.
Uh,
I think it's important to have
Interesting.
that.
You were free to explore, and that gave you a lot of will to make that
Yeah.
yeah.
exception, to go and try someone out. I love that. That's
And
super.
also to say, that was the attitude with every date. And so out of like 100 and some dates, it worked with one that like we were like, now we're a thing. But I feel like
That's not
that,
true. You had other people that you had good dates with,
yeah,
saw for a
you
while.
know, I had incredible dates with a lot of girls. I feel like that space of being like, if I was brave enough to make a move. I put myself out there, no expectations, and the response wasn't ideal. Like, it wasn't, yeah, I like you too. Let's go on a date. Let's make out. Like, it was, thank you. And I was like, that was part of the risk of me saying, hey, I really like you, and stepping out and allowing myself to be vulnerable, exposed, possibly hurt. And when you were like, that's really sweet, that was part of the risk. Like, I knew that it was like, you are allowed to say no. But me asking is, I'd rather know the truth than live with the question. And although that happened more than once in all these experiences, there was the girl that I met that broke my heart the first time we met, Hannah. That was something similar. Like, I put myself out there. She absolutely destroyed my heart. Um,
To which a beautiful album came
Yeah.
out about that. Mount, everybody go stream that on Spotify.
No, that was Gianna. This was Model
Oh, Model
Misbehavior.
Misbehavior. Sorry.
Different heartbreak album. Get with
Switching
it.
them up. I'm sorry, guys. Both of them go Spotify. Mau.
Oh wow, the plug. I love it. I
Both
think
of these people too, because they're both musicians. Just in case no one knew, that's why we were
Yeah,
able
get on
to
that.
have a 3-person audio setup, and it's working perfectly so far.
Let's go. I guess all that to say that I feel like there's the risk reward of being vulnerable will more often than not blow up in your face. But I think that it's a wonderful way to live, and the payoff is great because I guess the mentality of that whole experience, not just with Maddie, but like allowing myself to experience people and dates and explore myself, I think really gave me the perspective of like how frail and unique it is to feel something for anyone at all, and how special it is to have the attention of another human with another story, with their own complications and experiences and perspectives, and for their attention to stop on you even for a moment. How wonderful that is, and to not stifle it with trying to hold on. And I feel like that's something humans often do. Is somebody painted this really cool picture of a butterfly stopping in your hand, and like butterflies are stereotypically beautiful, so let's just pretend that butterflies are the most beautiful thing in the world. But like a butterfly stops in your hand and you get to admire it, and out of all of the places it could rest in the world and in your space and area, it decides to rest in your hands. And that's a really special moment, and it can stay there for a millisecond or 10 minutes or whatever the time is. And during that time, you're living a very unique, special moment. Now, if I wanted to make this moment last longer, I could trap that butterfly, but odds are that I would break its wings or hurt it, potentially kill it. So my only option really is to appreciate the fact that it's there, experience it, appreciate it, and if it decides to fly away, is enjoy the fact that I got to live that in the first place. And although that is a very lame analogy because butterflies can be terrifying, I've notably gone, what the fuck, to a butterfly in my life before. Not hit it, but just they're scary. They're flying at your face. You're like,
It relates. Yeah, a beautiful
Yeah.
butterfly, a beautiful woman coming at you, but she's fucking crazy. Like, oh shit! All right, don't flap your
yeah,
wings
you
like that now.
gotta defend. But I think the beauty of it is like learning to, I don't know, let go of things. And when you have the absolute gratitude that something really intense and beautiful happened for 1 week, that was just like the best sex you've ever had, or the like a woman that came into your life that you're just like, how can this person care so much about me? And it's 3 months or whatever the duration of that stuff is, this moment of gratitude of just being like, I could have not experienced that. And although yes, it lasted 1 week or 3 months or whatever, you experienced it. And learning to let go. And so I think with Maddie, even when we started dating, like I had just come out of a polyamorous relationship. That was the first time I've ever done a poly, like open relationship thing. And Maddie very honestly was like, I don't want to share you, dude. If we're going to do this, I want exclusivity. And it's cool if that's not all right with you, but I figured I'd let you know. And
she mentioned that
I
dating
was like,
phase, right?
yeah, I had spoken with her when we started getting a little to know each other a little bit better and about our circumstances and what we wanted out of what we were experiencing. I told her like, yeah, I just came out of this thing and I got to be honest, because I was scared to say this. It's really scary to be honest and transparent. But I was like, I got to be honest, I'm a little scared to lose the freedom that I felt from dating and being single. And I'm a little scared to, I don't know, I don't want you to catch me on Instagram looking at unrealistically beautiful women and feel like that means that I don't care about you. Like I like to reserve that kind of moment. And now we laugh at it. Like my For You page is like fitness girls, and we laugh at it because obviously I'm not trying to date those women, but I find them incredibly attractive. Get it, girl.
Yeah, I would have called into a corner saying, I can't believe I just told someone that. Fuck, they're absolutely going to leave. They're absolutely going, and I can't blame them because maybe that was way too much dumping. That's too much honesty.
it is scary, man. But I guess the beauty about it is then it gives us both freedom to say, this is what I'm dealing with right now. And she can say, I don't want to share you. And it scares me to think that I need to look like that for your attention. But that's just not the truth. There's a very distinct experience between sexual intimacy, emotional intimacy, and lust. And I think lust has nothing to do with sexual intimacy because it is fantasy. It's unrealistic. It's AI art. Like it's just absurd. And so I think her having the emotional intelligence, and also it came to trust me trusting that she's done her work. So to know that if I do have my Instagram open and my explore page is just a bunch of like fitness women, that it it bears no consequence in our relationship or in her ability to trust me, because the truth is I don't DM these girls because I don't want to date these girls. I truly, I've rationalized it in my head as I don't think I could date someone that's wanting to be in the gym 2 hours every day, wakes up at 6 a.m. Like that lifestyle just doesn't realistically, like emotionally and intellectually fit with mine. Realistically, I think they end up dating really muscular dudes because they also value those things as much. But just visually, yeah, it's appealing. Who can deny that? She admits it. She's like, damn, they're hot. And I'm like, yeah, it's nice to look at, whatever. But being vulnerable like that allowed me to be like, I'm scared to lose you because of kind of the needs that I've met right now that I'm scared to lose. And she's like, let me promise you that I don't want to share you, but if these things come up again, I'd rather you talk to me about them so we can tackle what to do about that. If you want to explore again and like you have the need to, I don't know, have sex with another woman or you're attracted to someone else, I'd rather know that you're tackling with that because that's a relationship issue, and we can decide together whether we need to break up or open the relationship or try a threesome, or there's options, there's endless options, but that conversation has to be a conversation we have together. And so we've now crossed that barrier, giving each other permission to not be judged, to know that things are going to get complicated, that being attracted to other people is a real thing, and giving a solution to be like, we are deciding to unite our lives. And if in a year we decide that this is no longer working because you fell in love with somebody else, I'd rather know that and appreciate the fact that we had a year of honesty and of growth and of whatever, than making you feel stuck and you had to hide and be like, oh man, this girl is DMing me and I have to like whatever. It's like, just tell me, because I don't want to be with someone that doesn't want to be with me. And that's the foundation. And so it was like, cool. And now we've managed to bring that into our daily life where we have that level of honesty and I don't feel judged, and nothing like that has come up. Like, I'm extremely satisfied with our relationship, but knowing that I have the capacity that if something were to get complicated, to talk to somebody like that has been the first time I've had a relationship like this, and also had the courage to step in with that kind of honesty. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, man. Like I think that's like the next step, I think, for people once they actually have a relationship. The first thing is finding someone who cares about you and is interested. But I highly recommend it to anyone that's going in a relationship is be bold and demand and express honesty in a way that you're not going to be judged for the way that you are. And if the person doesn't judge you but can't step to what you're asking, that's okay. And that's actually better. Like that, because you might find somebody that likes your weird, and if they're like, yeah, dude, I don't want to lose my freedom, then you're in a polyamorous relationship. Congratulations, and you did it with honesty. But I feel like that honesty is the minimum. Like, you need to have that as a foundation in a modern relationship, and we're very lucky that I think we found it in each other.
I think
Fuck
that
yeah.
honesty, like, is more important than anything else, and I think we both I'll speak for myself, but I feel that it aligns with Mao too, is that, like, that honesty is more important than my feelings. Like, I can handle my feelings being hurt. I've had a broken heart before. I've been alone. I've been through climbed over mountains of emotion before, and that's okay. I can handle that. But that honesty is more important than my hurt feelings. So I would never want him to
Mhm.
not tell me something out of fear that it would hurt me, because
Right.
honesty is more important than that. So I think just having that, and we do check-ins fairly regularly. I think like not that we're like every Friday we sit down and do a check-in, but like every
How
once
are
in a
you
while,
feeling?
yeah, every once in a while we're like,
Are you desiring?
do you desire
How's
me?
your desire?
No, we do like little temp checks. We're like, how are you feeling these days? Are you good?
Yeah.
Have you been like, are you happy with how
With this?
with all of this? Are you happy how you've been cooking all the time and I haven't touched the kitchen? Are you happy with
No, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. This is
Yeah.
the time.
lay it on me?
Interesting. And it's not like a regularly scheduled conversation with you guys. It just happens. You guys both hold each other accountable to check-ins.
Yeah.
We're both too ADHD to have a schedule like that. Are you kidding
Perfect. I have some very
Yeah.
big follow-ups on this. To wrap up on
Shoot.
the Mao area, imagine everyone puts themselves in their shoes when they're listening to a podcast. Imagine not having been vulnerable and telling Maddie all of those things and taking that risk. I wonder how many eggshells you would have walked on for much longer if that wasn't even communicated. It makes me curious. And that's just how I'm viewing this. Like, I'm trying to put myself in those shoes, like, whoa. My scarcity mindset is kicking in. Is there even anyone out there that would respond like that?
There is.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing is fuck, you went on 101 and found that one. Like, that just says it right there. That's what's what.
I found like 5. Like
Yeah.
Maddie's by far the most incredible human I've dated, but like so I met a girl named Kalista, and we accidentally ended in polyamorous thing. I met this girl named Hannah, and I thought that was it. I was like, this is it. This is the girl I'm gonna end up marrying. And this is a girl named Emily who we had a wonderful, very brief, but like a 2-month relationship. Like I'm telling you, there are people out there that will match your weird. It happens, man. For someone to match your weird, you have to be weird.
You have to be weird. Fuck.
And
Mhm.
because or else you're just both. Well, what if they don't? But
Right.
then if you don't take the risk, then they will never know. And unless someone is, this is the best thing I learned out of that whole experience is vulnerability begets vulnerability. If someone is brave enough to be vulnerable on a date or in a conversation, it demands the other person to step in or to leave. Some people can't do it, but it's very blatant. It is like contrast, black and white, when you are being vulnerable and someone can't step to. And it's a great indicator to be like, you can't meet me where I'm at. But out of the 100 some dates, like 90 of them were the most enjoyable dates, regardless of whether they led to something, because I was brave enough, because I'd worked on myself enough to be vulnerable the whole time, to be like, whatever. If I went on a date with this really Christian girl and she was like, what do you think about sex before marriage? And I was like, first date, cool, let's go. Here's what I think. And I'm very well versed in the Bible, so we got into what the Bible says about it and all that stuff. And it didn't work out very obviously with this girl, but it was really cool that me being vulnerable, Christian religious lifestyle, to actually meet me in a real conversation in real time about a very complicated topic that has affected the entire world. And so I think the worst thing that you can do is box yourself in, and that comes by not being honest. And honesty is really scary. And there's some things you're like, maybe not about this one. I won't be honest about this one. And it ends up biting you in the ass, because what honesty allows you is freedom. Because you can either be free of the person that doesn't accept your honesty, which is freedom, or you can find freedom in the relationship that you're in, because clarity is the best thing. And if your partner is just, yeah, that weird's okay with me, you're free. And if at some point they're like, they're honest with you, that thing isn't cool anymore, you're still free. Because after that, you can say, okay, do I still want to do this? No, I don't want to do this anymore. You move on. And obviously that's a very simplified thing about relationships, but
No,
it does give you the clarity is a superpower, man. And honesty is the only thing that allows for clarity.
that's
So
almost
fight for it.
freeing of guilt. Because I'm about to ask Maddie a follow-up question, but I'm like tying this together. That frees you up of guilt during the dating relationships and finding your person. Like, if it doesn't work out with someone in 3 months, 6 months, even a year, having that mindset, having that much honesty in the relationship the whole time, imagine the minimal amount of guilt, the minimum amount of pain. You spent time together. There's memories, there's experiences, there's like DNA, there's chemicals that'll take time. But to just come out of that, it almost like you're unscathed. And if anything, you're encouraged to be even more, you have a new standard. So this is extremely encouraging. I'm going to rewatch this a bunch of times. And I always say this anytime like Maddie speaks up too. But Maddie, I have to ask you this. When you heard Mal say that for the first time with all those like Instagram things and like being scared of the freedom from the poly, I'm sure no one has ever been that honest about you, because that could be the most like scary thing a guy could even open up about, which is really honest. A lot of guys probably have that. So how did you actually feel and how did you respond to that in real time, considering you probably didn't have that experience before with others?
I haven't had that experience before, but I think it was like relief to hear it, because I think in the back of our head, that is a little like concern that we don't really get to know that side of our partner. If they're not telling us that, then they
You're assuming it.
you're assuming it. And also, like, we live in 2024. People have Instagram. We live in Los Angeles. There's beautiful people everywhere you go, and they're all young and they're all single and they're all hot. And that's just a part of life. And I think to hear my partner actively say, I don't want you to feel concerned about this. This is how I'm feeling and I want to share that with you. I was, hey, yeah. My For You page is all lesbians, I have to tell you. And my previous partner had a big problem with that. And wow, what's yours look like? And we just, like, wow, it's just, we both have boobs everywhere. Wow, this is
It's the
great.
same. Amazing.
And I think it was just like a really nice conversation, because then it also allowed me, like he was saying, vulnerability begets vulnerability. And it's like, it gave me the space to be like I've been like carrying this thing where like he knew, I've been very honest with him from the beginning, that like I was seeing a woman before him and was like exploring that side of me that was new, and then very quickly fell for him, and here we are. And so it was nice to be able to have that conversation as well, to be like, okay, yeah, this is still like a thing that like I'm attracted to women, and I hope this doesn't bother you. Like, this is, my algorithm has figured it out. Sometimes I linger on these things, and so it shows me more. And he's okay. Sometimes I linger on these pages, and it shows me more. And I'm like, great, okay, fantastic. And I think we've had conversations even since we've been dating for a while, like during a temp check, and where we've been like, hey, how's everything going? And he's, I've been a little distracted lately, and I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like I've been like scrolling on this stuff a little bit, and I don't really want that. And I'm like, wow, yeah, let's talk about it. And I think, I don't know, there was no piece of me that brought out fear or anger or jealousy. It was like, okay, yeah, we can handle it as long as I know about it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm watching both of your facial expressions as like Mal was talking about it and as Maddie was talking about it. And neither of you had the expressions that I would normally see in people that are faking it or have a little iffiness on it, or they're faking it by having those meetings every Friday at 3 p.m. or something. So that's beautiful. And that just set a new, original, organic experience for me. Like in life, a lot of things aren't like original. So that's what I'm experiencing with both of you. And it made me immediately think, the first response or reaction I can think of is like one of my friends that they would have had the complete opposite reaction of you, Maddie. This is like no red flag, toxic man. They'll never change. Honestly, a lot of people fall into that category. And I'm trying to refrain from even saying a lot of people, because I just met someone like you. You're on this podcast in LA.
Sorry, Zeus had something to say.
All good. Zeus is always welcome on the pod. This is like the whole escape of scarcity mindset, is just seeing more examples like this. And then now I'm even like, I'm thinking out loud. What if I was in a relationship and I didn't have this freedom of communication? Because this is just both pure truth from both of you. You are speaking your human experiences to each other and growing together. And I was like, man, now that I've seen this, what if I don't have that? But everything else is fine. I wouldn't be happy.
I stand by the honesty thing, but I feel like a lot of what I'm seeing in the world is like a lot of the very important, necessary tools that make someone improve in their lives can also be used negatively. So we've talked about this a lot, that like one of the things I dislike the most is I see it more on social media, that there's more and more men that are going to therapy and they're weaponizing therapy talk. So,
yes,
they're saying like,
absolutely.
you're crossing my boundary. They're using like therapy. Just therapy language to justify their shittiness. And so it's, you didn't get it, dude. Because like someone who gets it wouldn't say this in this moment. And so I see the honesty thing
I
with.
went on an accidental date with a woman, and she talked about how she was in therapy longer than her brother, and so that made her better. I just kind of closed my mouth there.
You didn't get it. You didn't get it, dude.
Interesting takeaway after being in therapy for so long, but okay.
And I'll also say this. I think therapy is incredible. I really do think that therapy is incredible. Please go learn more about yourself and get someone you can talk to openly, freely. It gives you the opportunity to be vulnerable where maybe you don't always have that opportunity. However,
That is interesting.
I
That's
do
like a way to do exactly what you and Maddie did, was be that honest with each other. Maybe therapy is a way to practice dating.
and I genuinely also like I grew up in therapy, so I had it a lot for a large part of my life, but I haven't been to therapy in a really long time, but I've still found books and articles and movies and it's out there on things that challenge the way you think about the world and make you a better human and more empathetic. And I feel like people who take advantage of these things don't get it. And so I will say the honesty thing half-heartedly, because I feel like the reason it worked for Maddie and I is that there was mutual trust, that she could trust that the reason I was saying this wasn't as a I get to fuck whoever I want and I'm being honest about it, but because I was like, this is a part of me that I'm genuinely struggling to let go, and I'm weighing my options, and I want you to know that I have your best interest in mind. I do not want to hurt you. And if I want to step into this, I want you to understand how much it means to me and what I'm letting go of. And so I feel like it's neither a guilt trip, like it came from this very genuine place of this is what I'm dealing with. And I hope you can see it and understand if these are the things that are happening. I want to be very careful if there are any listeners out there. Like it all boils down to your intention. And people, like, if at any moment you're like, this is starting to look like manipulation, like someone's taking advantage, like if you have that instinct in you, follow that instinct. Because I think I can say this, maybe it was the first time Maddie's confessed that it was the first time someone's done this. I think that the reason why she could be okay with it and we could make light of it is because it came from a place of, I don't want to do that. I'm not telling you this so that I can get out of jail free card, but because I want you to not worry about the potential conversation that's going to come up. It's all about, I want transparency. Like it wasn't like a selfish remark, but more so I'm including you in what I'm tackling. I want you to be included in this conversation. And I also want you to give me permission to approach you when things get complicated about this thing that has been very enjoyable in my life. And then I'm willing to sacrifice to step in with you, but could potentially come as a problem later. I would like to have the ability to come to you with this topic and not feel judged or you're going to freak out on me. And also as a reason for her to know that she has no reason to be jealous because I can come to her with these things. And it frees her from the concern of whether I'm DMing somebody, because she knows that if I am DMing somebody with that intention, she'd be the first to know because we agreed on that. We talked about it. And so if a man is approaching you or a woman is approaching you with this kind of honesty, but it feels like they're just trying to benefit themselves, then be very wary of that, because although it can be honesty, it's not an honesty that is relational. It's not connection. It's not connective. The intention isn't to connect with you. It is to excuse themselves of whatever bullshit they're going to pull. And so I just wanted to clear that up because I think it's important.
Yeah,
The
the same
distinction.
thing. It's like girls would be like red flag, and that absolutely could be a red flag. 100%.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely could be a red
you're
flag.
just a walking green flag, and I knew that. And I also think I would have had an entirely different reaction if it was somebody else. Because
Don douchebag.
yeah, because Mao is who he is. I knew that it was coming from a very genuine place, but I think a lot of people would use that in different ways, and that's hard to navigate. But that's what it is that when it's actual honesty, it's honesty. And when it's fake honesty, it's manipulation, which
Yeah.
in Instagram specifically before. So it was nice to feel like I was like, nah, you're being real with me. We can talk about this.
And I think that's the distinction. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a perfect tie into intent. But Maddie, you felt his intent. And that's something that I've realized recently is how obvious your intent can be from a glance because of how the security within yourself, that can even just determine what intent are you coming. You might not even say something. Like Maddie pointed this out. The girl mentioned that I wasn't asking her to talk to me and text me every day. It was more of just communicate. But then you're like, that's probably what she felt. And I was like, you know what? That is what I was probably giving off. And I didn't even realize how obvious that could be. So that was like a moment of self realization for myself too. And it made me step back and think. Yeah, I just want to mention that. But Mal, go ahead.
Yeah.
How is that going? I'm
Yeah.
curious.
It has maintained on no response from her. And then recently, I forget what day it was, but it was earlier this week, I thought about reaching back out and establishing something just to see if we can pick back up now that a month and some time has passed. And then I just looked at everything a little bit more objectively. And I was like, I really wasn't happy with effort. I'm not happy that it just gets left at that. And
Yeah.
it didn't feel right that I know it was a short amount of dates. It was 2 dates. It was rushed. And I frankly did get love bombed. I look back at everything. I'm like, yeah, this was a straight up love bomb. Like just looking back at it with less of a trigger coming from me. And I was triggered. And honestly, I had a nightmare last night or 2 nights ago that showed me that I'm really hurt. So my EMDR like therapy goes into like really vivid dreams now. And I was like, damn, I am really hurt. And the abandonment wound is active. It is very active. But still being aware of that and looking at all of that, I'm like, no matter what, man, I'm just not happy with the effort. If I put in more effort, that's okay. It's fine. This is already a sign. Like, and it's just, I know it's been a short amount of time. You can't determine someone over a couple days within a week and all of that happening. I guess a week total. But it's just like zero effort. Like I couldn't get myself to do it. And I told myself either decision I make is okay. And then I just wanted to say, you know what? I want to protect. The decision I made was I want to protect my emotional peace right now. And that's what I'm going to do. And that's okay. So that's the decision I made for now, is that I just don't want to take this on just in case she doesn't respond. If I double text, I was like, oh, that will probably fuck me up. Or if she does respond, she's like, let's just be friends. Your communication style, early dating, that's just not good for me. So it could have been all those things.
I think that's very wise, man. And going back to the thing is, I highly encourage you, man. If you're second guessing yourself, I think you're already like failing yourself, because I think, and that's not true. You're not failing yourself, but I feel like that's the most damaging thing that's a situation like that can do, is make you doubt that your personality or your whatever to be true about you, your honesty, your humor, whatever. If you're second guessing that, I feel like that's the most damage that can come out of like a love bomb, because
Damn.
whoever falls in love with you naturally, or whoever you have this natural chemistry with, would appreciate a double text, a triple text, a quintuple text. Like they don't care about that shit. That's there's no rules about that. I hate seeing these like date guys that are just like, yeah, these are the rules of dating. I genuinely think that the only way you're going to get something genuine is if you're genuine too. And sometimes you're going to get people that really don't respond well with that. And so
Thank you.
that's okay. Bye. And bullet dodged. Like,
Dude,
next.
especially, yeah, coming out of a love bomb. Fuck. That's
And
so
I feel that, man. I wrote an album
push
about the
yourself.
love bomb thing, man.
I gotta
The love
listen
bomb
to
thing
it.
is, yeah, it's not out yet, but I'll send
Okay.
it to you. I feel like you'll be able to vibe with it. But
Fucking sick.
That was the first time I met you. You were coming out of that with Hannah, right? The very first time we met.
the first time where I was just like, nothing's like lasts forever.
He literally,
Impermanence is everything.
no, he literally sat down like day one meeting him. Like we are just grabbing coffee as friends. Like we were just meeting up, and he like sits down. He puts his tea on the table, and he like sits down and he goes, "Nothing's permanent." And I was like, "Oh, okay. This is
Man.
This is where we're going. Yeah.
hello, stranger from the internet. What's going on with you today?"
It's like, it's crazy. Nothing is permanent.
It's like,
I would have
just-
hated Mal if I met him at that mindset. Like, no, I get it. It's true. And in fact, like one thing to throw in, like that really helped my mindset was you can't account for everything. This includes a perfect relationship, honesty, grace, everything in there. You can't account for the fact that they might in 10 years cheat on you anyway, or that they might die. Like you just can't.
Nothing is permanent.
Promise.
Yeah.
Permanent.
But your anxiety is real. Your anxiety thinking they're going to die. They're going to die. That's my abandonment. That's the last hope that the anxiety can reach for giving you a trigger. It's true. They might.
But that was okay. I think the actual thing that I said was impermanence is actually really incredible. Have you ever realized that? I don't know at what point humanity decided that we have things that last forever, because nothing does. And that's not a bad thing. And I feel like this is exactly what I said. I was like, impermanence isn't a bad thing. I think that what I've been really discovering is that, going back to it, that it makes you appreciate things so much more when you realize that they don't get to last forever. That all we have is right now. And isn't that incredible? It's great that we're just meeting for the first time for coffee. And if I never saw you again, I got to meet you for the first time at coffee. And that will never, that's the only thing that I get to hold on to forever. And I wrote about it in the album that is out called Mouch, just realizing that I broke up with my ex-girlfriend and I was really sad about it. I felt like I was an awful person for breaking someone's heart who saw me as their end all be all. They were like, this is a person I'm going to marry. And then I broke up with them and I felt like a shitty person because I cared. I genuinely loved this woman, but I realized this isn't who I want to spend the rest of my life with. I can't. I don't want to. And I can love you and not like you. You know what I mean? And so I wrote this song realizing that the 3 years that we had together, that's going to be permanent because the memory of it will last as long as I want to hold on to it. And I can let that go if I want to, and that will be. But the relationship is done, and I got to let go of what was. And so it was this really big awakening. And even though I had that mindset, I got love bombed, and I felt like a crazy person, Justin. I get it. Knowing what I knew, understanding that letting go, I had worked on letting go a lot, realizing that I actually struggle with mortality, not things dying, but things dying to me, as in they continue to exist, a relationship, a career, a friendship, whatever, like things that are just like, it's dead to you, just to you. It continues to walk around in the earth and other people get to enjoy it, but not you. It's dead to you. Fuck you. That shit is so hard for me to deal with. And so I had worked on all that. I met this girl. She love bombs me, and I went crazy. I couldn't sleep. I had the most, like I had my first panic attack in my entire life. It was bad. And I think the realization of all of that was to say clarity is a superpower. I was experiencing what you're describing, being like, it's crazy because I know how much I like this person, but I don't think I can go back to how it was because I know too much now. I know that she's bad at communicating, or that she like, and what am I supposed to do if she comes back now? Pretend that is fine, like she didn't spend 2 months not talking to me. Like, how can we go back to normal? And that kind of seesaw, not clarity thing happened to me too. And that drove me crazy. So I feel for you, man. And I think the best thing that you're doing is finding clarity for yourself, being like, I know what I'm worth. And although I loved the experience of these 2 dates and I felt something very profound, I did everything right. And you did. Falling in love is, you can't protect yourself if you're falling in love, because then you're going to hurt yourself and the other person. The only way that you're supposed to fall in love correctly is to do it with the risk of getting hurt. That's what vulnerability is. And if you guard yourself, you're going to fuck it up. It's terrifying because if tomorrow you meet another girl that makes you feel this way and all of a sudden for 4 days doesn't text you back, you're going to go, oh, this thing again. And it's going to make you want to pull back. But I encourage you, your mind is, I'm a guy who likes to text because I like this girl. Text. And I promise you that if this girl likes you too, she's going to respond 4 days like, I'm so sorry, this is what happened. And you're going to be like, oh, this was all in my fucking head.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't and she ghosts you, you did everything right.
Fuck me.
You did everything right, man. And as long as you keep trusting the fact that you're doing everything right, at some point you're going to fall and the other person's going to fall too. And you create this beautiful triangle. And what's the strongest? I'm just going to get into geometry. What's the strongest geometric shape? The triangle.
You're the power too.
The power, yeah. So I don't know, man. I think you're doing it right. I think it's shitty that they fucking suck. And if you're listening to this podcast, text better, you son of a gun.
Hey. You don't know her side.
Yeah. And honestly, my therapist was like leading towards there might be something going on with her, which, like, I'm just gonna give a little bit of context and then I'll ask the final question.
Yeah.
Like, I've known her for 2 years as I was a DJ, and super sweet, super gentle. Always, like, anytime she had a request, I'm like, you're not paying me shit. And she always did. So it was just beautiful. And then when I finally got the courage to make us like actually meet up, I had stopped DJing. It was very clear that she admitted that whenever things get overwhelming, she recluses. And for some reason, I just didn't throw up a red flag. I'm like, I hate avoidance. I was like, that doesn't apply. It's just you and me. Like, you and I get along really well. We have amazing chemistry, but we always have. That won't apply in case I overwhelm you. Of course not. I forget that integrity applies everywhere. How you react everywhere How you hold yourself, like whether you sleep with everyone, or you date, or you don't, that's a part of your integrity too. So just random things. They show up. How you are everywhere is how you show up everywhere. And that's something I'm learning. So I feel like that kind of showed up. And then I literally told her, like, am I overwhelming you? She's like, yes. I'm like, do you need space? She's like, okay, yeah. I gave her space and then came back to it, and just nothing continued after that. So I'm like looking back at all of it. I'm like, I don't like everything I did, everything I behaved, everything I've learned, I applied it there. That's what I'm looking at. That's what made me say, you know what? I am a great communicator. I have a fucking podcast. Like that's an expression to me because I'm a fucking I'm a communicator. And so that's what really made me feel secure. I did my best as I was. I even told her, like, hey, I have anxiety. And honestly, like these 2 dates, I might need a little reassurance. And she did it. She did the reassurance. And then the next day, like Maddie pointed out, like maybe it was too much of like relationship ass stuff and she got overwhelmed. That's true. A lot of things could have happened on her end, and she's not right or wrong for it. She's not a bad person. I don't hate her. So if she's watching this podcast, I don't hate you. You're welcome to reach out again.
Son of a god. Like, no, I don't hate you either. Feelings are hard and it's complicated, but also just give people clarity, free them from their own tyranny, man.
That part. So I'm like, I might even change my mind, and I might still like invite her to my birthday party, like I always do every year. And she might show up, and who knows? But I'm trusting myself that I'll be able to handle any of those. Like the fact that I said I'm just gonna protect my emotional health instead of try to get some clarity met. I was like, man, that was empowering. So I'll wrap that up on that section. The final question I have, which we already went over time, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw this one anyway, just because we're flowing, and then we will wrap it up. Pacing. So it relates to, I've been wanting to ask this question, but you are vulnerable and you got vulnerable with Maddie. I don't know how quick, but pacing for me was a doubt of mine during this girl that I told you about. Man, did I tell her about the anxiety too soon? Did I tell her some things too soon? And then even my therapist was like, there's really no timeline. There's a million books out there about it, but there's really no timeline. I'm like, 3 months, right? 3 months, you got it. Because otherwise you don't get to know anyone. You don't feel safe. You don't dump shit on them. And he's like, no, it could literally be a month. It could be, I don't know. We don't know. So I'm curious on your pacing. Did you adjust, by the way, too? Or how do you go about your pacing? Early dating, especially.
Never. I guess it goes back to the consistency of the whole thing is you cannot apologize for the way that you are. I am the way that I am. And so I can't turn it off. I'm vulnerable here. I'm vulnerable. The integrity is
so hard to turn off.
I don't know how, and because I don't know how to be anything other than myself. And this is where I went with like the brains. Like for me, it's easy because I don't. My little brother said it to me, and everyone in my family has said it to me. Is just like something that's been incredible about knowing you, Mao, is that you don't know how to be anything other than you. And it's been a blessing and a curse because I don't concern myself with how I am perceived. And I don't think that's just a confidence thing. I have a lot of insecurities. I've had a lot of insecurities in my life. But I feel like the way that I hold myself in public, because of the way that my brain works, naturally, I can't apologize for the way that I am. There's so many other complicated things in the world. Can't be anything other than the way that I am. I don't know how. And so I think vulnerability from a child, from being a child, I couldn't turn it off. And so my experience in life is that you're going to have a lot of people that are offended and that leave. And also you're going to have a lot of people that gravitate towards it because it's magnetic. And I've experienced it a lot. Maddie, how many friends do I have? Like I have friend groups, and I love it. And they come and they go. And I think people gravitate towards vulnerability. And I don't think there's a timeline for it. And I think anybody that studies it, I feel like it's like jazz. Like I went to Berkeley for music, and Miles Davis did a thing. He performed, and at the end of the performance there was like a Q&A, and so students would be like, wow, like when did you start? And you'd be like, when I was a kid. And they would just hop around. There was a teacher that asked Miles, like, Miles, on this song there was a moment in your trumpet solo where you transferred from the G minor to the C flat and diminished, and did you ever consider that the fifth, the sharp that you decided to put in there, was it a little bit too complicated? And Miles Davis just said, I have no idea what you just said. I felt it and I played it. And I feel like you're going to have scholars about emotion. And it's great that we have them because there's some people that need to read about it so that they can be in touch with them. But I truly think that vulnerability And human interaction is something that you just have to do and feel and try and get hurt and fail. That's the thing about vulnerability. The one thing I can promise you is that you will fail, you will get hurt, and you'll get better. And you'll try it again because that's the way that it works. And being someone who has been vulnerable my whole life just naturally, it's incredible to see how people open up. And it is symbiotic. When you are brave enough to be vulnerable, people do step into your vulnerability, man. It happens every time. And if someone can't do it, it's beautiful that you don't take it personal because you're like, you just don't have the tools, man. You're not there yet. Go work on yourself. I'll be over here enjoying my life. And so I'm going to encourage you, man. Don't stress about it. Be vulnerable because it's a part of you, because you've worked on yourself hard enough. And trust me, you're going to get hurt. You're going to have people that walk away. Those aren't the people you want in your life anyway, baby. Like the people that end up being like, yo, what you're doing is sick. How do I participate in that? They end up being the friends that you keep around for a long time. And I'm going to encourage you to do that in your relationships, in your friendships, in your work. Obviously, read the room, but be brave, be courageous, and in a date, dude. The amount of times that I've actually verbalized, like showing up and seeing someone that I thought was incredibly gorgeous, and just being like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm very intimidated by how pretty you are. Be patient with me because I need to get over this. Like that's just a line, and we'd have an awful date. But when they see the genuine vulnerability of just me overexpressing what I'm experiencing so that they can hear it and we can tackle that together, has been incredible, man. Some people would just be like, that's really cute. Okay, yeah, take your time. Or they'd be like, I honestly think that you're really cute too. Like I saw your profile and yeah, I'm a little intimidated. We're both in the same place. I'm a dork, and then I can be my. It allows when you're like, this is how I'm feeling, and I'm scared of this, and meet me halfway. People would be like, oh, thank God you said it. I also feel things, and you're like, we feel things, and it's wonderful. So I don't think there's a timeline. And what's your timeline like typically, Maddie, on vulnerability?
I think to double down on what you're saying, I think vulnerability is contagious and it's magnetic. And I think the moment that you came into my life, back into my life, I guess, because we'd met like a year prior, but like when you truly came into my life, it was like I was in the space where I was trying to figure out like, I mean, I knew who I was, but I was finally allowed to be who I am. And like I was living alone for the first time and like working a big girl job and like all these things.
So
And
proud of you.
thanks. And when I met up with Mal, I was like, yeah, I'm like silly, goofy, weird, and felt like nobody in Texas really got me in that sense. And I have beautiful, wonderful friends that I met towards the end of my time in Texas. So this is not speaking to their friendship, but previous to that, I felt like really shut down every time I was silly. It was like I was told that I was immature all the time, even though now I feel that I'd never hear that anymore because I've found the right people in my life that I surround myself with. But like my ex used to tell me all the time, he's like, you're just too young, you're too immature. And I'm like, I think I'm just like wanting to dance around the kitchen and sing Shania Twain. I don't understand what the problem is here. Or I this happened and this friend really hurt my feeling and I want to just tell you that's why I really did not enjoy being there, was because I didn't really find those golden people until I started being more vulnerable and then really pulling those people in. Once I was like fearlessly myself, I found those people, but it was rough because I went through a lot of people that did not vibe with that. Know that there's necessarily a timeline, but I think like with Mao and I, it was really easy to be vulnerable right away. And then I have people like my best friend Abby, who was here the last time we were recording in the background. I feel that my friendship with her has grown so vastly in the last year that I've moved back to LA and spent more time with her. And I feel like we've very recently gotten to a place where we're really vulnerable with each other. And I don't think that we really were that for a long time, but it was just because that was what was comfortable. And we were still best friends. Like she was still the person that I called when shit hit the fan and was like, hi, I need to move all my crap into your apartment. If I show up in 72 hours, is that okay? And she's, yeah, come on over. But she was also somebody that I would feel like really uncomfortable previously discussing a lot of things with. Now we've gotten it. Well, politics, but now we do. But and I think no, but even things that I would feel really comfortable talking with my other girlfriends about, do you wax or shave? Or like things like that. There's just like conversations that her and I would never really have. And now I feel like we're a lot more vulnerable with each other. So I feel like pace just depends on the person. And it's not,
Yeah.
there's not one answer to it, but vulnerability is good. And I think putting it out there a little bit and feeling the room, and
Feel in
you
the
know,
room,
that
yeah.
provides, and also the right space, because people crave vulnerability. Like that's why drinking is
Mhm.
such a huge culture. People go out and they chug alcohol because then all of a sudden they have no filter, and people like that. They like it so much that it is a multi-billion-dollar industry that like it's such a culture, and people have a hard time stepping away from it because they need it as a lubricant to be social, because people want vulnerability and they want the other person to be in that same space. They're like, "Are you having a drink? I'll have a drink with you. We both drink. Oh, we're drinking. Okay." And then it allows you to be vulnerable. So people want it, and once you provide the space for that emotionally for them, they're gonna, little by little. Sometimes people are more little by little
Yeah.
than others.
It's almost like that can of beer or that martini is our contract. We're both signing this contract. Let's put it on the bar, and now we can be vulnerable with each other.
Hmm.
That's a perfect time, because I honestly would have assumed, Maddie, that your answer which you just said it, was that you would have paced it much slower. You would have paced your vulnerability slower. You would have gotten to feel the person out. But then Mao showed up and gave you permission. You also felt his intent. So him as a person, that matters. And I'm going to tie that in at the end. But something like that where you can be honest and keep being honest and just trying it, no matter what anyone thinks and says. Fuck, that's just you giving everyone permission to be vulnerable. And that's really beautiful. That's so beautiful to me. Really, that's all what we strive for at the end of the day. Like, really, alcohol, yeah, like it pays for my living and I'm a year and a half sober. You know what I mean? So that's how powerful that industry is.
Yeah.
I do want to say that the only dangerous part, the caveat to this, which I think both of you would agree on, this has absolutely changed my life. So that's why I want to, and it's continuously changing my life. So no way am I finished with this. But that caveat is, while going through those things with that girl, love bomb, 2 dates, all that stuff, we discovered something in therapy that was more obvious now that it's been said, is I am throwing like a safety line out there, like a tether, like someone grab on and make me feel that comfort and safety. That's a big part of, am I actually being vulnerable, or am I throwing words out and throwing things out just to see how safe I'll be with someone? That comes with those expectations, right?
Mm.
It's like, I'm going to throw this line out and be vulnerable, but really it's me just throwing it out to see if I can be avoidant with you. If you don't agree, if you don't want to be there for me, now I can be avoidant. My attachment style was fearful avoidant, right? So I do both, anxious and avoidance. Then it started making sense, more sense to me. So ever since then, it's only been like maybe 2 or 3 weeks since that kind of like really hit me, that I'm just trying to have someone latch on so I can feel safe. Now, all my solo dates are very different. So these solo dates,
Mm.
when I'm going out, I'm like, oh, fuck. Like the ego is dropping a little bit and I am enjoying myself. Wow, this time that when I hugged myself, I actually felt comfort. Oh, you can
Mm.
actually get a little bit of comfort, even though that need to be outsourced. Turns out you can still have it. And like I woke up one morning saying, I want to journal today. And we went out and journaled. I was like, no, I want to be next to water. So it's like answering my child's prayers. This is what I want to do. And then doing it and still being responsible in your days. This feels a little bit more powerful. This feels like something less that people can take away from me. And I don't necessarily need this to feel that safety and comfort, which made me more
Mm.
secure in my decision making. So it's only been a couple of weeks. Of course, it's been a long journey of 2 years of therapy and being sober and drugs and all that. But still, it's like balancing being vulnerable and authentic, but then also realizing you ain't shit. Like you still got shit to work on. So ask yourself both of those questions. It's be brave, be vulnerable, but also ask yourself, is this the intent? Where is this coming from too? So I think both of you would
Mm.
agree on that, but I wanted to point that out
Mm.
just so that's always the thing for the audience. We never give you advice. This part is experience. And both of these are important to become a bit
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah.
100%. I think that bonding with yourself, like we've talked about that a lot before, like having a bond with yourself is like the biggest part to growth. I think also like that being able to know people's intentions too. Like when I was really living alone for the first time and was like just needing to be like, I'm going to hold myself and I'm going to love myself in a way that I feel like I neglected to take care of myself. I neglected to stand up for myself. I was not rooting for myself. When I started doing all those things, I started to ask myself more questions, like you're saying, like, what do I really want to do today? And let's answer them honestly and be real with myself. And I think like in meeting Mao, I had a lot of conversations with myself of if this was my friend and she was telling me about this guy that she's just like, oh my God, he's so amazing. I love him. Blah, 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 blah. What would I say to my friend? And I would give myself advice on it of, okay, do you want to call him? Do you want to text him back? Do you want to see him again? Okay. Yeah. And does he make you feel comfortable? Does he make you feel safe? Does all these things, like I would walk myself through that. And so I think that's like a huge part of it. It's just like asking yourself like you would a friend, because sometimes we do not talk to ourselves as kindly as we do our friends, or we don't give ourselves as good of advice as we would a friend. So being able to be vulnerable with yourself is important.
I love it. And we're going to wrap it on that. Be vulnerable, but also be aware of what may be manipulative vulnerability. Question yourself all the time. That's the whole theme of the podcast.
Always
Always
question
question
yourself.
Oh shit, now that sounds unhealthy. Awareness of the entire thing.
Be curious, not judgmental. That's,
All right, Ted Lasso.
dude, changed my life.
It's a good show.
Even a better switch up. Mao, you have been one of the best males I've ever had a conversation with, period. Obviously, the audience is like, yeah, you're going to be my best man at the wedding now. Fuck everyone else. So that's just how
I'm a real man. I'm a real
Yes.
man. Don't forget that.
Yeah, that's how the hierarchy goes. Maddie, you always close it off for us. Anything to get these bastards to follow, listen, and stay with us more as usual.
I think everybody should ask themselves, did they like this podcast? Is it worth leaving a review? And I think they'll find that the answer is probably yes. If they're feeling vulnerable, they're going to share that with us, their vulnerable review.
Oh, fuck, you're perfect.